Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago, right here on Tobago Updates. Again, I am your host, Shenell Felix. Now, this morning we continue our discussions and we are chatting a bit about the return of the police commissioner, earlier here with Christopher. And to have this conversation with me this morning, I have the privilege of sitting in studio and chatting with attorney at law, Mr. William Nurse, also former ACP. Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Felix, and good morning to your viewership, all of Tobago and wherever they may be.
All right. Now, what we are observing right now happening in the TTPS is nothing short of a power struggle. We saw yesterday that the police commissioner, here with Christopher, returned to office after having been cleared by the court. And this morning we're hearing that there was somewhat of a struggle as acting police commissioner Junior Benjamin stated that he is still in charge as no official documents or assumption of duty document has come to his office as it pertains to the reinstatement of the police commissioner. He stated that he has not received a revocation of his acting appointment, and as such, he is still in charge. Is it possible to have two police commissioners functioning in charge of the TTPS?
If we remember, in 1985, the Pope visited Tobago, and there was a calypso that said, two commissioner, two chief justice. I hope the Prime Minister tell the Pope about this. The point is, the police service has always been a contentious place. Now, at that level, it is the responsibility of the Police Service Commission to iron out those little patches. So the court has cleared Miss Earla Christopher and has ordered her return to the job. Miss Christopher contract, extended 1-year contract, comes to an end on the 15th. The question is, did the Service Commission comply with the order of the court? And if the revocation did not come to Mr. Junior Benjamin, and Miss Earla Christopher was not given the clearance to return to work, then the Service Commission seemed to have not done what it is supposed to do. And their actions might very well be justiciable.
Understood. And who takes responsibility for a situation like this? And how is the Service Commission, held accountable? What is the repercussion for something like this?
Well, the Service Commission is a public body, right? And according to the Constitution, it is responsible for appointing the Commissioner of Police and the Deputy Commissioners of Police according to the police service. And so they are responsible for the administrative aspect of those two ranks. And if the Service Commission, well, then the question is, why continue to keep Miss Earla Christopher on suspension? The DPP has written very clearly that that there is really no issue, going forward. So the investigation at hand, in my opinion, reading from what the DPP has said, has cleared Miss Christopher, right? There is no probable cause for them to charge. Then the court has ordered her reinstatement. And I don't know if it is true that the revocation of Mr. Benjamin did not come and Ms. Earla Christopher was not clear to return to work, then somebody seemed to be in contempt of court.
Understood. Now, even as it pertains to the type of working environment that is created with this type of conflict, do you see that creating a toxic working environment that lacks productivity?
Well, yes. The police service has been plunged into that situation since 2006 by the Police Service Act number 7 of 2006. It is a worthless piece of legislation. I've said it here before and I'm going to say it again. Now, that piece of legislation seemed to have come about because of an interaction that the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Manning, had with a police constable. And the police constable was there rude. He was rude. That matter was adjudicated upon and the police constable was dismissed. So they brought this piece of legislation. And if you look, and the legislation in itself is very discriminatory. It discriminates. Look at the police, look at the other entities within the Ministry of Homeland Security. The prisons doesn't have to go through those hoops. The defense force, an office that is higher on the list of protocol than the police service doesn't have to do that. The requirement to be commissioner and deputy commissioner, you must have a master's, and that's the dividing line. There is no other public service post in Trinidad and Tobago that requires that. None. So it is what we call to be a piece of legislation that was developed with bad mind. Bad mind. It's a bad piece of legislation. And I don't know, I think the present government should look again at the police service. Because if you don't fix that, how on God's earth are you going to fix the police service itself? So there is no clear leadership at this point.
Right. And how does that even affect the regular functioning of the police service when you don't know who you are coming to work to report to or taking directives from? And there are questions surrounding possible retaliation from Earl Haywood Christopher as it pertains to, that type of dismissal that she faced in that suspension.
Two things come into mind. Span of control. One of them is span of control. And you cannot have two people operating at the same time in the same space with the same level of power. That is utter confusion. So, and it is the duty of the Service Commission to fix that. Whether Ms. Earl Christopher had 1 month, 1 day, 1 year, 1 decade to go, it is their responsibility to fix it.
Can she take legal action against them?
Of course she can. Why not? Why not?
Under what grounds?
Well, if they fail to do something, maybe they can judicially review that. Because, there is no basis upon which you're keeping her on suspension. The court ordered her return to her reinstatement.
And if she was unlawfully suspended, when we look at the case after, having not being charged at all, is it possible for her to report some of her colleagues, so her subordinates who did the arrest to the Service Commission to have their positions reviewed?
Well, the question is, if you look at the judgment, the judge was very clear that if you are investigating the highest office for acts arising out of that office, then the removal of the office holder, not necessarily the commissioner, is a wise move, is a prudent move. So the office holder steps aside, the investigation proceeds, and if the investigation reveals nothing, right? But in some jurisdiction in the Caribbean, it's a bit different because I had the privilege of investigating the police commissioner in another jurisdiction. I wouldn't call where, and they suspended him before our investigation started. And he, on that basis, was able to take the Service Commission to court and won. So it was after our investigation started against that commissioner that, his suspension was ordered. Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, even as the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service tries to move forward and reconcile from this situation that has not only put a stain on the public opinion of the TTPS, but the internal functionings and how persons feel about their colleagues and their ability to get their throat cut at any point in time just for a position. How does the TTPS reconcile this? What has to be done internally to change this culture?
There will continue to be, of course, let us examine the police service. There are two sets of people in the police service pertaining to the police service, the external public and the internal public. The external public already has little or no trust in the police service. That's a foregone conclusion. But when it comes to the internal public, even those persons who were involved in the investigation themselves, the internal public will therefore not trust them. They will see them in a particular light. You know, it is possible that they may. And what does that do for the police service? So you lack the trust of the external public and you've lost the trust of the internal public. How is that going to work?
How do they reconcile this?
Well, you have to look and see how much leave those officers have. I'm dead serious. They need to look and see how much leave they have and send every one of them on leave.
Well, you are echoing the sentiments of former police commissioner Gary Griffith, because he said, you know, those persons should be removed because of the actions that they would have taken. But even as the public, we look on and we see this type of thing happening, it further erodes that trust that we have in the police. And the question lies, even though we now have a Minister of Justice, right, and we have Homeland Security, how is policy structured to try to combat this?
Well, the change of a ministry's name in itself wouldn't really do much. You know, government policy must be developed, and departments within ministries must aspire to keep government policy. You must develop your own strategic plans and strategic operations to consistent with government policy. Well, I don't know. This government policy, the only thing I've heard is that they want to have crime reduced within 6 months. Now, the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. Who is the leader in the police service? As at present, because today is the 14th, Miss Erla Christopher's time expires tomorrow, possibly at midnight tonight. Right?
Okay.
So, what are you going to do?
And the service commissioner is saying she should have her appointment letter in hand this morning. So,
well,
how does one become appointed the day that they are sent?
The last day in office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I've heard, what I've read is that the suspension of Miss Erla Christopher she was accorded all her entitlements and so on. Now, the last time that happened to a commissioner, where a commissioner was suspended, was after Mr. Burrows was suspended, and a lot of police officers were suspended by the old Police Service Commission regulation. And they were suspended without charge. And they took the matter to court and won. Now, when people are given power, I mean, power is a tool, but you must not just want to use power at first resort. So what we saw going on with the police service there was really a power struggle, a clear power struggle. Because I don't know if I heard right. The news is saying that there is still an investigation involving Miss Erla Christopher.
I think that the DPP would have already shut that down. Now that came from one of the deputy police commissioners, I believe, that said that they were going to continue to look into it, but the DPP did shut that down and said there's
Well,
no grounds to continue an investigation. There's insufficient evidence.
well, one does not know whether there is another version
Okay.
of the investigation, or one does not know whether or not there is a new entity of the investigation which must be carried on. And when the DPP has spoken, and the deputy commissioner could make such a statement, it tells you that all is not well, and they are washing dirty linens in public. Investigation is a nice thing, and if you can do it and do it well, it benefits the nation. So what I saw with Miss Earle Christopher, I am being disappointed. Saying that I'm disappointed would fall woefully short of what I feel actually. Yeah.
And the persons who feel like her personality and her way of doing things are not strong enough for the position that she's in. I had an interview this week with former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith, and he said to me, if that was him in that position, knowing the law and having the law at hand, he would have chased them out of his office like a dog and let them know that what they were doing was not in alignment with the law and they need to come again, basically. So do you think that, they would have taken advantage of her personality? Not the fact that she is a woman, but maybe just her disposition, being a bit more calm and
Well, Section 3 of the Criminal Law Act, Chapter 1004, gives the police wide powers of arrest without a warrant for suspicion on reasonable grounds of suspicion of the commission of an indictable offense. And we all know indictable offenses are those very serious offenses triable by judge and jury or by judge alone. And if you are investigating misbehavior in public office, it is indeed an indictable offense.
Right, but what he was saying is when you look at the law, what was done is not illegal. The procurement of the type of rifle, it is not illegal for police commissioner to sign off on that.
We haven't reached there yet.
Okay.
The threshold for the investigation is a little lower than that. And had she resisted, they could have possibly charged her with resisting arrest. The whole situation, in my opinion, was not handled properly. It was handled very poorly. And because there's a lot of background check that you needed to do. And if you look at the structure, there's a firearms unit, and they will have all the documents relating to firearms. All the authority, all the signing, all the documents signed. And I don't think they had to go to Miss Earle Christopher in the fashion that they went. This is my view.
Okay, but how would you have suggested that approach be done? Because you're saying that they were in their rights, based on the investigation, to arrest. But how do you suggest that should have been done?
There are levels of investigation. So you're gathering when you're gathering information, you gather the information. And when you reach to the stage where like the office of the commissioner must be searched, that's a very delicate situation to read. That means the investigation has advanced to a certain level. Now, the service commission, they could have approached the service commission.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? I don't know. I approached the service commission with a report. What I found very strange is that the investigator herself furnish the Service Commission with a report. That is self-serving. Now, the Deputy Commissioner Administration was the best person to have furnished that report to the Service Commission. You understand what I'm saying? And the Service Commission will then inform Ms. Erla Christopher, listen, there's an investigation ongoing here, and the police would want to would want to interview you, and we are removing you from office, or they could have sent her on vacation.
Understood.
You know?
Right. But had you been in that position, would you have returned to office after that suspension?
Yes. I have a legal and moral responsibility to Trinidad and Tobago as police commissioner. Miss Erla Christopher, all the people who have said what they have said, she was duly appointed by the Service Commission and have gone through all the processes, and therefore she must not vacate because people want her to vacate. And if she's innocent, as we have all seen.
All right. And pending her resignation, the end of her contract tomorrow, does that mean that Junior Benjamin then continues to act as Commissioner of Police from tomorrow?
Well, if she is to continue in office, the cabinet can give her another 1 year extension. That will be the third, and that's the final, right? And if the cabinet choose not to do that, then the service, that means she would go off into her retirement, and they will now appoint somebody to act as commissioner.
And most likely it would be the same.
Well, yes, most likely it could be Junior Benjamin. But the process have to go all over again to Her Excellency the President, to the government, and then to the Parliament.
Okay, understood. But now that there is a new government in place, there are a number of new opportunities to serve, to contribute, and to give of your expertise. Do you see yourself possibly providing those services to the current government, whether as a consultant or on any of those legal boards?
I am retired. I want to have nothing to do with the police service. Nothing whatsoever. I have done what I have done. I spent 41 years there. And the best I can do is to wish the police service well.
Right. So we would not see you serving on any of those state boards as it pertains to giving your legal advice or guidance to maybe help restructure that same police service that you don't no longer want to be.
Sometimes I see myself as a lawyer of the poor people.
Right.
Like those poor people in Glamorgan and Bell Garden who have their little cases and they can't get to the court because there's nobody to take them to the court on their behalf. Those are the people I am interested in. Beyond that, now let me say this, and I want to say this cautiously. I was educated at the expense of the Tobago people. This is my time to give back to them. Yeah.
Totally understood. We want to thank you for offering those perspectives, but also breaking it down for us so that we have a better understanding of exactly what is happening. Because the truth is, the average citizen, we are looking on at this saga happening in the police service, but we really do not understand the intricacies and the procedures and the acts and the sections that pertain to what can be done and how it can be done. Because the average person might say, well, if I was a Christopher, I wouldn't go back there. I would just tell them, keep their job. And then there are the persons who would say, well, if I were to go back there, those persons who would have arrested me would have feel my wrath. So, based on the procedures and how things work and how you report persons to the Service Commission and how that whole process goes, we get to understand that things don't just work like that.
It don't. But one thing before I go, if you allow me, this government should look precipitously at the Police Service Act Section 16 is a dangerous it's dangerous. There are 3 levels of assessment for promotion in the service. Commissioner, deputy commissioner, other first division officers, and second division officers. It's crazy. It's mad. And they cost a lot of money. The assessment for first division officers who man their division is counterproductive. When you hear that time comes around, officers lock themselves away and there is no leadership in the division in most instances. They have to look again. And if they ask what I would do, send your police officers to command colleges abroad, broaden their perspective, internationalize their thinking on policing. That's my view.
Excellent. I think that's a great recommendation. See why you should probably be serving on one of those boards.
I'm serving now.
Guys, we want to thank you so much for being a part of this morning's discussion. I want to say a special thank you to Mr. William Mills for coming in and giving us those perspectives this morning. I want to thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments, and all that you have done and continue to do to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, I am Shenell Felix, and have a great day.